Hey, family. Maybe you're in a marriage right now where you're the only believer, and your spouse, he or she just doesn't want to go to church, doesn't really want nothing to do with God. They're like, you do your thing, but I'm not going to do it. And they're just an unbeliever, and you're just like, you're frustrated because you want this godly marriage, but your spouse isn't saved, and you think to yourself, well, maybe I should just marry a Christian. Maybe if I just, got rid of this marriage because he's not a believer and married with a Christian, we can live for God. Hold on. Don't do that, okay? I'm going to tell you why. Because Paul was dealing with this with the church of Corinth, and he gives instructions for us as believers if we're already in a marriage. Yes, if we're looking at somebody today and we're thinking about marrying and they're not a believer, no, we're only supposed to marry the Lord. But if you're already married, or if you were unbelievers and you became a believer, we need to try to spread the gospel. We need to try to live by example, let our testimony hopefully win them over and our kids. And this is what it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, starting with verse 12. It says, to the rest I say, I not the Lord, that if any brother has a wife who is an unbeliever, and she consents to live with him, he should not divorce her. If any woman has a husband who is an unbeliever, and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife, and the unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean, but as it is, they are holy. Now, here's the context. In the church of Corinth, there's people who Paul was preaching, and he's teaching the people, and people are getting saved. And as they're getting saved, they're like, now that I'm a Christian, my husband or wife is not a Christian. Should I just divorce him and marry a Christian? And Paul's like, no. Because even though, yes, you being a Christian can't save them, they have to have their own personal relationship with Jesus Christ. What he's saying by they're holy or set apart or that they're sanctified is that your influence, don't leave them, because your influence, if you're living the gospel out, if your testimony is shining, that your influence could hopefully rub off on them one day and they could get saved. That when you're being the woman of God or the man of God you're supposed to be, your husband or wife who is not saved will all of a sudden look at you and say, you know what, I want some of that for my life too. And your kids, there's the age accountability. It's saying that they are good until age accountability is saying that, they are holy. Like if a baby died or a 3-year-old died, they aren't old enough to understand the gospel yet. So they can't make their own decision yet. So it's before that age, before they're old enough to make their own decision, that they're good pretty much. So I want to encourage you that if you became a Christian, your husband or wife is not going to church and is not believing in God, you know what? Keep praying for them. Keep praying for them and love them even more like Jesus. Love them like Jesus till they can't stand it. Because eventually what we're praying for is that one day that will rub off and they'll be like, you know what? I want that too. And the kids will see it and they'll be like, I want that too. And they will grow up by that influence, which is different from the world, that they'll have that spiritual influence that will overlap from generation to generation. So, I love you guys. If you're in a marriage like that, don't give up. Keep on trying. Keep on praying. God can do something awesome. He can do a miracle in your family's life like you've never seen before. All right, family. You guys have a blessed day.